In today's video, we're going to take all of the color out of the room, and then I'm going to show you how to do a classic film noir look using 6 lights. Welcome back, everyone. If you could please like and subscribe, I would really appreciate it. And another thing that I appreciate is when posting an image on Instagram and the conversation that occurs in the comments leads to something really cool. And that really cool outcome is this image here of Etherio that I created this week. And in today's video, I'm going to break down for you how I created it. I'll also talk about how I lit this set right here that I'm sitting in. It's all very similar. And I'll tell you the origin of how this came about. So I posted a photo of Fernando that was lit from the front with a Elinchrom light in a Bowen's 200mm Fresnel, and that's what was lighting his face, and then I just used a separate light to light the background. And so in the comments, someone said to me, "That looks like Harcourt." And I said in real time to myself, what the f is Harcourt? And so I looked it up, and as it turns out, it's a French photography studio that does really cool work, and most of their images look like they are from that film noir era, which I think is like 60 to 80 years ago. And it appears that they're still doing work in this genre and in this style. The only thing that I noticed, though, was that they are using a lot of hard lights, a lot more than I was using with Fernando. And so I decided that I would try to figure out this lighting. And so I went ahead and I Googled Harcourt BTS, or behind the scenes. And I ended up finding some behind the scenes images. And you can Google that exact phrase. And I'll put it on the screen now just so you get the spelling right. And you'll see those images. I would just tell you, but I don't want to infringe on anyone's copyright, even though we could argue that it's fair use because I just critique them. But we'll keep everything safe that way and do the right thing. So I noticed that all of the images were lit with 1 or 2 hard lights on the background. And just to give you a little more of a sense, all of their lights are continuous movie lights like you would see probably from Ari or Mole Richardson. Maybe they have a different brand in Paris, I'm not really sure. But they would use 2 of those lights to light up the background, and that's in order to keep sort of a marbled effect. Maybe they would put 2 stripes of light on there, or maybe they would use one through a gobo, like the window pane gobo that I have back here on my background. And so that was sort of how that was done. Then I noticed that all of them had 2 kickers, or they're sort of like edge lights and hair lights all at once, and they're really high in the back, pointed down at the back of the person's head. And that creates sort of this separation on each side of their jaw. And then the person was lit from the front with a hard light on their face, and then that was filled with another light being bounced off. Actually, it was bounced, they did it with 2 lights, 1 on each side, and those were each bounced off of 2 round reflectors in order to get this fill coming back into the shadows. And so I went ahead and decided that I would set up something similar with Etherio. And for the first time, I used some new software that I bought on Black Friday called Set.a.light 3D. And I promise they did not pay me to talk about it. They didn't even give me the program free. I just got a 15% discount because it was Black Friday. But the software lets you come up with some behind the scenes imagery, and it's really cheap, by the way. And it also lets you simulate lighting in the studio in the program. So you can use different modifiers and it will show you sort of how they will look. In fact, this is what I came up with in the program. So before we move on to the next part of my video where I break down what the power settings were and the exposure readings for all of the lights, I wanted to let you know about my lighting handbook. And it comes packaged with my other digital download, Intro to Lighting. And in this document, I go over 20 different lighting setups, sort of like I'm doing in this video today, and give you in-depth information about how you can recreate those looks in your studio, including approximate distances and exposure readings, and a whole wealth of great information. And that digital download is on sale this week for 50% off. So you can pick it up packaged with the Intro to Lighting Guide for only $25 here on the last week of the year. So for more information, just go to johngress.com/lighting handbooks to get your copy today. So the program can actually predict for you the input settings that you need to use on each light so that you can get the proper exposure on set. But one of the problems with that is it specifies how far the light needs to be from the person, and it's very, very critical when you're using hard light in close like this. So when I did my setup, I didn't follow those distance recommendations. I just sort of put the lights where I thought they should be or where they needed to be practically, and then I input the settings that they said, and this test frame is what came out. And as you can see, it doesn't look that great. So then what I had to do is adjust each light to taste in order to get the desired outcome. And so right now I'm going to give you a breakdown of the power input settings and, more importantly, as far as I'm concerned, the light meter readings that I got when I measured the light, right on his face or underneath his chin or where it was hitting his body. The reason why I like to use a light meter is because if I were to, and the reason why I think these readings are a lot more useful is that if I were to give you the power settings for a particular light, as you can see from my own experience, you would need to put that light in the exact location with the exact same modifier. Maybe you don't have that modifier. Maybe those distances will be off a little bit. But what's far more powerful and useful are the light meter readings. And you need to use your light meter if you have one. And I know you don't always have one, so you can just sort of do trial and error and figure it out. But I find that things are far quicker and far more repeatable if I use the light meter. So you want to have the light meter placed very close to them, not between them and the light, because if you have it close to them, it will give you the correct results. So now I'm going to break down for you the power input settings for each of my lights, and I'm also going to give you, perhaps more critically, that light meter reading so that you can get a better idea of how you could recreate this sort of look on your own. So I have my camera set to 1/200th of a second at f9, that's f8 and a third, if you will, at ISO 100. And I was using my Canon 28 to 70 millimeter zoom lens. It's an f2 lens, but of course I was using it at f9, and I was shooting pretty close to 70 millimeters. So that's what I was using for my camera. My main light was an Elinchrom ELC 500 in a Bowens 200 millimeter Fresnel. The light metered on his face at f7.1, and my input power was 4.3 on the Elinchrom scale, which translates to 125 watt seconds. Then for the fill light, which was bouncing off of my 1 meter or so or 40-inch silver reflector, I had a 7-inch reflector that would be 18 centimeters with a 30-degree grid inside. And that light, after it bounced off of the reflector and came back up to his face, metered at 5.0, and my input setting on the Elinchrom scale was 2.3. Then over his right shoulder, I had another 7-inch reflector with a 20-degree grid inside, and that light pointed, or it was pointed at the back of his head, and it metered on the back of his neck, or the side of his face here, at f13. And my input power, once again, was 4.3, or 125 watt seconds. Then over his left-hand shoulder, I had another 7-inch reflector with another 20-degree grid, and this time it metered at f11, and my input power was 3.0. And that's probably because that light was closer to him than the other light, and that's why using the light meter is very important, because you're not always going to have those distances exactly right unless you're, using a tape measure or something. So then for my hair light, I was using another reflector, this time without a grid, and the reason for that is I actually don't think I had another grid for that size of reflector, and it just wasn't necessary. And so my input power was 2.3, and when I used my light meter and metered it, it metered at f16. So then for the background, I was lighting it with an ELC 500 at full power, that's 500 watt seconds, in my nice photo SN29 with the window gobo, and I think it was about 3 feet or 1 meter or so from the backdrop, and that light metered at f4.5 when I metered inside of the window panes, if you will, on the backdrop itself. So let me tell you about this setup that I'm using right now to light this video. So I'm using a Nanlite FS150 with their Fresnel attachment and barn doors to light my face. And the light is zoomed in or focused as much as it can right here, so that we sort of, hopefully, your attention is being drawn up to my face. Then in front of me I have one of their small pavo tubes, and it's dimmed at 50%, and it's just pointed back up here right at me. Then over this shoulder and over that shoulder, I have another FS150 up high with a standard reflector on it, pointed down at the back of my head. And all of these lights are turned down extremely low. I believe that that one's at 5% and that one's at 3%, to just sort of give you an idea. And then to light the background, to get this window pattern shape back here, I used a Forza 500 in my nice photo SN29 again. This time I have the light turned down to 50%. When I had it at full power, it was starting to smell like it was melting the plastic, so just be aware of that. And that is how I achieved this look today. And if I were to talk about my regrets for the shoot with Etherio, the one thing that I would mention is I wish that I moved the light with the gobo further away from the backdrop to make the pattern larger, like you see in this shot today. I'm probably being lit with the same equivalent, captured with the same equivalent focal length, and you can see how much larger this window is in my picture compared to his. So anyway, guys, I hope that helped and sort of opened your minds a little bit to maybe shooting in a different way. I can't say that I ever used 6 hard lights before on a still image. So that's pretty exciting to me. Now, one little thing is, if you do not have a Fresnel lens attachment and you're using something with the Bowens mount, both Nanlite and Aperture make a Fresnel attachment for those lights, which you probably could get and get fairly cheaply. Now, you could just go the other way. You could just use a standard reflector with a grid in it and get vaguely sort of the same look. Or you could just troll on eBay for a while until you see one of these Bowens Fresnels come up and then adapt it to your particular mount that you need. That's exactly what I did. And ironically, my Bowens Fresnel came from someone on eBay in Paris. So I guess we've come full circle. So thank you guys so much for watching. Stay safe, have a great day, and I will talk to you soon.